All right, I want to share with you one of the secrets from the 3D and Force Lab here at TPI for getting maximum power. Anytime you are trying to get full speed, it matters when you apply forces to the ground, right? Sir Isaac Newton had a law. First law was objects at rest remain at rest unless there's some type of external force applied to those objects. What that means is forces precede motion. Why does that matter? What it matters is if I move to the left, there was a force that I applied before I moved that made me move. The force happens before the motion. And what we now know by looking at great players on force plates is that they're going to apply force to the ground, and those ground reaction forces need time to travel through their body to move the club. And if you look at the biggest hitters in the world, they'll apply these forces really early in their downswing. So they have tons of time to get it to the club and maximize the energy. Whereas amateurs, what we see a lot of amateurs, is by the time they apply their forces, the club is so far down, there's not enough time to get to the club, and they're just hitting it with their upper body. I want to show you an example looking at some data here in the lab. Okay, so here's what I did. I took 3 players up here. I've got one of the biggest hitters on the LPGA on the big screen over here. I got one of our long drive tour players, one of the fastest ball speeds on the planet on the top. And then I've got just a standard amateur young lady on our bottom right here. What I did is I took each one of these athletes and I took it to where their last ground reaction force occurred. Usually your last ground reaction force is vertical. After that point, energy starts transferring through your body and it's trying to make its way to the club. I want you to notice on our long drive player, look where the shaft is. I mean, it almost looks like the top of the backswing. It literally is applying this right after the end of the backswing. Now our big hitter here on the LPGA is demonstrating where we see the most common on LPGA and PGA, around shaft vertical. So remember what I'm saying here. Most of the best players in the world will push from the ground before the shaft goes past vertical. And here's our typical amateur. You can see where she's got the club here, right? So you can see it traveling down right there is peak vertical. The shaft is parallel to the ground. I gotta tell you, I don't think there's enough time. Think about how many milliseconds it takes to go from here to impact. There's not enough time for those forces in the feet to work their way through the body, out through the arms, all the way to the club. So what you're going to see here is an upper body hit. Right? So you can have the greatest ground reaction forces, but if they're not at the right time and they're too late, we're not going to get the force we want. So if I go back to my long drive player here, you can see, like I said, at this point in time, if I go to his swing, this is right where his peak vertical is right here. Right? So now that he's applied the force from the ground, the energy is starting to transfer through his body. So what you'll see on these players is the energy is going up through his body. As he goes down, you'll start to notice his feet are actually moving. They're moving backwards, they're moving forward. The reason they're moving is because they're not on the ground anymore. His jump happened so early, all the energy is going through his body. You know, we used to think you need to have this firm, solid contact with the ground at impact. If you're trying to get firm, solid contact at impact, it's way too late. The moral of the story here is pros are early, amateurs are usually too late.